acronym for Science, Technology, Engineering, and Mathematics, STEM, related professions are often among the highest paid in the workforce. Unfortunately, Black women are underrepresented in STEM fields, with statistics showing they're less likely to be employed in these areas when compared to other groups. The Pew Research Center reported that there's been no change in the share of Black individuals in STEM since 2016. And those of us in STEM are more likely to earn the lowest wages across these fields. Recognizing this, we're including special episodes in this podcast that focus on Black women in STEM. We're calling these STEM stories, as they're going to center on interviewees' personal journey. We also know that sharing these stories on platforms we can access, like podcasts and other social medias, can be a powerful tool for Black women in science to find community, belonging, and safety. In this STEM story, Dr. Danielle Dickens interviews Dr. Maya Byfield, a professor of biological sciences at Seminole State College in Florida. Dr. Byfield is also the founder and director of Phenomenal STEMist, a book and programming effort that guides individuals towards becoming successful in STEM across the educational pipeline.
I'm excited today as I have the distinct pleasure to interview Dr. Maya Byfield. Can you tell me a little bit about yourself, your career journey, and your research interests?
Sure. So I'm young. No, I'm not young. I'm a New Yorker. I'm from Jamaica, Queens, New York, born and raised by Jamaican immigrant parents. I basically received my bachelor's degree from Oakwood College. That's the HBCU that I went to. It's also a Seventh-day Adventist college. So I went to Oakwood because of its HBCU and Christian nature. Oakwood is in Huntsville, Alabama. That's an experience, moving from New York City to Huntsville. But I went back home after. I went to Albert Einstein College of Medicine in New York, and that's where I received my master's and Ph.D. in the Biomedical Sciences. The concentration was Molecular Pharmacology. So I'm a molecular biologist in terms of trade. I did a Post-Doctoral fellowship in Neuroscience at the University of Central Florida in their medical school. So that's my background biologically, but I love teaching. I taught for a year in New York at a community college. And currently, I am a professor of biology. I've been there for over 15 years as a professor in both STEM research, and I teach allied health and pre-med majors. So I teach a research course, and I train students in their beginnings, because most of my students are first and second year students. But right now, I have a passion for data in health disparities, particularly triple negative breast cancer in Black women and prostate cancer in Black and Latino men. So I teach my students how to gather data from national databases so that we can extrapolate ideologies of social determinants of health.
So I'm also a HBCU alum, I graduated from Spelman. And so I wonder if you can speak about how your HBCU education at Oakwood had an impact on your decision to obtain a career in STEM.
I loved my experience at Oakwood. It made me unafraid, number one. When I was in New York, I've always been smart. I've always loved science. My grandmother taught me how to read at 3 years old, and I knew about photosynthesis. That's one of my first words as a toddler. But as I got throughout my elementary and high school years, I was intimidated by science and science schools. So the Bronx High School of Science and Brooklyn Tech had mostly whites and Asians, and I wouldn't apply. And I did not feel up to par for whatever reason, because of these imposter syndromes that I believe we have. But when I went to Oakwood, it taught me how to be confident in myself. I learned how to study. I always knew how to do well, but I learned how to be excellent. And I learned not to fear anyone. I had a solid background. I took hard courses, biology, chemistry, organic, all in the first 2 years. I was taking 21 hours and I was succeeding. And by the end of my experience at Oakwood, I can go anywhere and believe I can go and do well. And so that's when I went to Einstein, which is still mostly white and Asian. I was able to get honors, top 3 students to get honors on my master's thesis, qualifying exam, because at that point I was unafraid. I was afraid in high school, but I was not afraid after college. And I think I attribute that solely to my experience at a HBCU.
Yeah, I think that's the powerful nature of HBCUs. And I think we, seeing that now with the, increase in enrollment at HBCUs and, given this mantle of affirmative action and Breonna Taylor, George Floyd, it's just been this even greater push. And now I think more and more Black people are like, now I recognize even more the need, especially in this time of attending a HBCU and what that can do for, I think, your overall sense of identity, your confidence, right, to enter into these spaces where you will be one of few.
Right.
So it is I would say such a powerful, space to be.
It's in my opinion, it's such an important part of an 18 to 22-year-old's life. Having a strong sense of identity and confidence. And many of us don't have that. And if you put yourself in an environment where people automatically think you're inferior, even though you're not, you will succumb to their thought if you don't have a strong purpose and identity. HBCUs, in my opinion, give that in that such critical age. So many people say it's time for me to enter the real world. I don't want to go to a HBCU. I'm like, you're only 18. Do you know who you are yet? And if you don't, you better get a strong sense of identity, because the real world is cruel to people of color.
Mm-hmm. That's true. That's true. How do you think HBCUs can leverage the work they're doing in the recruitment and retention of Black students, particularly Black women in STEM, right? We hear these statistics that HBCUs only, I think they only represent, of course, a certain percentage of the overall higher ed landscape, but they are powerful in the sense of being some of the top institutions that are graduating Black students that go on to get PhDs in STEM. And so how can, HBCUs leverage the work that they have been doing and currently doing?
I don't see HBCUs much on social media. I don't see them much on YouTube, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram. That's where our young people are. And in my opinion, the others are targeting our young people to tell them they don't need college. And I say this all the time. Education is the most proven mechanism that brings our people out of poverty. Most proven. We got the data to prove it. And it's time that we leverage our recruitment to where the young people are. We may need to modify and get more tech savvy ourselves. I went to my HBCU in the past, and I could tell that they're just beginning to leverage technology. I think we got to get up to date with that. Quick, fast, and in a hurry.
Yeah. I agree with you. I'm really curious, as you were talking earlier about your research, I was really fascinated, especially when you're talking about the research on breast cancer among Black women. So if you can talk a little bit more about your research in that area, some of the findings, and where do you think research in that area is leading to?
So I once was just focusing on training my students in what research was or is. As I said before, these are first and second year students at a community college. We don't have the resources that major universities have to do wet lab research, for instance. And I would train my students to go out and get internships at wet lab institutions. When COVID happened, I had to modify. I had to still have a class where students can get a research experience, but they had to have it at my institution. And I looked around and I found this database called SEER, Surveillance Epidemiologically End Results from the National Cancer Institute. Through YouTube, I was trained on how to use it. And then, of course, through their website, I got further training on how to use it. It's free, open access. So I trained my students how to use it. And at first, it was open to everyone. And I was able to look into the specific states. Florida, unfortunately, does not give their cancer data to SEER, but Georgia did. And I was able to look at 2 counties, Fulton and DeKalb County, and I first had my students look at African American women versus Caucasian women in terms of breast cancer. And we all know triple negative breast cancer, I'm not saying we all know, but triple negative breast cancer is a cancer where the 3 receptors that get targeted by drugs are not found. So it's very difficult to treat, it's very aggressive, and it's seen in African American women quite a bit aggressively. And so I had my students ask the question, looking at 2 different counties, DeKalb County versus Fulton County, are the significant death rates, case casualty rates comparable? And the students found that in DeKalb County, white and Black women die at the same rate. Fulton County was where the disparity happened via a significant difference, right? So you're in Georgia, you know that Fulton County is different than DeKalb in terms of size and other things. I'm not really into Georgia that much, but then I had my students do the same thing with all counties, highly populated counties versus lower populated counties. And we saw that continue. In smaller populated counties, there's not much of a significant difference in death rates versus larger populated counties. Now, could be all kinds of reasons, right? It could be that Black people know that I got to go to the hospitals in the higher populated counties and it's not registered. We don't know, but we did the same thing in prostate cancer in reverse, but Latino communities is actually reversed. Latino men die at higher rates in the lower populated counties than so and so. So we're looking at, I believe that many of our diseases and our death rates and our disparities in death rates are not necessarily genetic, but they have to do with social determinants. And so I'm having my students look in different things like age, population size, marital status. I'm starting to see some things with single versus married. I don't know yet, but I'm looking at it. So I want to show that if we get our social life right in America, we might get our health right in America.
Thank you. That's really fascinating research. In our first chapter in the book, we talk about research methods. And so I think the work that you're doing is important, right? And it's highlighting the inequities and disparities, right, that we're seeing, especially as it relates to Black women, but then also the idea of, if you're in these spaces that you may not have access to certain resources, you can go out and seek. There's data out there that we all can have access to that will allow us to do research in capturing or analyzing data on these large data sets, which is important so that we can make, generalizations, across the population.
Absolutely. It's so important. I'm in this consortium called AIM Ahead, Artificial Intelligence and Machine Learning, to enhance, it's basically to enhance diversity in those fields. And I got training in this database called All of Us. All of Us is free, and it's trying to get everybody's genetic information, medical records in one space so that we can start looking at things from a holistic point of view in the context of America. The human genome that I learned about 20 years ago, I just found out it was just British, white, mostly male. Like, we were making decisions about genes based on one demographic. And so I'm learning. And then when I learn, I can tell my students in the community.
Mhm. Yeah, that's really important.
Yeah.
But can you tell me more about phenomenal STEMIS?
Okay. So phenomenal STEMIS came out of a passion for Black male students. 10 years ago, I teach biology and anatomy and physiology, mainly to students who want to be in the allied health, nursing, physical therapy, physician's assistants, right? And so many Black women were taking my classes, and not a lot of Black men were taking my classes. And then on top of that, not a lot of Black men who did were passing. And I had a concern that there was a disparity in our system amongst young people, Black male and female students. And I wanted to solve that problem. So it started off with me just getting all of my male friends who were professionals in STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math. And I would interview them on YouTube just to get more modeling out there. And then I said, I want to do it for both of us, male and females, because while allied health and life sciences are female dominated, STEM in general is not female dominated. So then I just open it up to every other month, a Black male or female. I'm trying to get more diversity in STEM because I'm a believer that field, if you look at the income gaps in America, it closes the income gap. And more African Americans should be in those fields. So it started off with me just doing a short podcast. And then I created a program to prepare parents because I feel like one of the main reasons why there's not a lot of diversity in STEM is, number one, there's not a lot of modeling. My podcast covers that, but there's not a lot of preparation from young. So I've created a platform where I can call Phenomenal STEM Parent, where they can literally learn how to guide their children in STEM, and Phenomenal STEM Schools for daycare centers to guide their young people in STEM. I want to prepare and I want to model, and that's what Phenomenal STEMist is. I wrote a book, and it's how from the womb to the university, how to prepare a successful STEM student.
Oh, I love it. I love it. So is the book out now?
Yeah, it's on Amazon.
Okay.
It's literally there at every stage of a person's life, from the womb all the way up to the university, what's going on in their brain. I have a postdoc in neuroscience. I know a lot about the brain, the different developmental changes that are happening in the brain over time, what a parent should do at those certain times to prepare their children. Yes.
That's so important. Yes, everyone, please check it out. We'll make sure we'll post a link of it. So where do you, I think you're already doing amazing things with Phenomenal STEMist, but what are some things that you aspire to do more
in the future? Yeah. So I'm just brainstorming. I have different things I want to do for different people. So when you're a child in daycare, I want your daycare to know exactly what to do, what videos to show, what activities to do for a child in daycare. When you're a parent trying to raise an elementary school kid, I'm telling you what to do. But what about this 15 to 25-year-old who not listen to mom and dad? I think they need to know how cool STEM is. So I'm working on undercover right now. I can't really put it out there, but a way to virtually, through gaming, make STEM cool for that that 15 to 25-year-old demographic.
I love that. I love that. Yeah. This summer with one of my colleagues, Dr. Valerie Jones Taylor at Rutgers University, we started doing some research on Black women's perceptions or perceived experiences in virtual reality.
Mm-hmm.
So over the summer was the first time that I went through a simulation. I had the headset on and I was just fascinated with it. And I'm like, okay, I understand. And I've heard, of course, more things about VR, but just to experience virtual reality, it just blew my mind.
Right.
And I was like, okay, I want to do more of this. And so, we did focus groups with Black college women, and so some fascinating stuff came out of that we're about to start analyzing soon. Just thinking about how Black women are portrayed, right? Oftentimes in these stereotypical images in virtual reality, but how can we use it also to an advantage? How can virtual reality be used to spark an interest for young Black women to go into STEM. So I'm like, I want to learn more about it because I'm still new to the area, but it was really interesting. Yeah.
There's areas for growth.
Mm-hmm.
And we just have to learn it first to fully understand how we can leverage it to help our communities.
Mm-hmm. Yep, exactly. We may have a lot of listeners, and some including students who, college students, or even, graduate students who are aspiring to get their doctorate or other advanced degrees in STEM or related field. What are some tips you would give Black women as they're entering into graduate school and potentially these spaces where they may be the only one?
So I'll just use me as an example because I've been successful. Number one, you gotta go into a safe place. So I went home. So every weekend I was in my mother's kitchen eating her food, right? I had a safe, my church, I was able to go to church on Saturday. I had a safe space. So if you can't go home, choose an institution. A PWI is fine. I went to a PWI, but I went to a PWI at home or a PWI near an HBCU. You gotta have a cradle in the midst of this, one of the toughest times in your life. You have to have a place where you can feel safe. All right, so that's number one. That was the number one thing I would do. Number two, you have to find a support group, a peer cohort that's on the move. So we had at Einstein, we had the PJA, Percy Julian Association, which was honoring Percy Julian, one of the first Black biochemists. And they had mock comprehensive exams. So they trained me in how to be, and they supported me. Good peer support group. Mentor, you have to choose the right mentor, the right principal investigator who runs the lab. I chose someone who was successful at graduating Black women. So the person before me was a Black woman in his lab, and she graduated. So I personally look at people who are successful in graduating people like me. I think those are the top three. And because you're already excellent, you got it. So make sure you're in a safe space. Make sure you have a good cohort of peers. Make sure you have a good mentor. Lastly, don't just settle into your own culture either. That's the beauty of grad school and going to a PWI after finishing at a HBCU. So PWI is a predominantly white institution, for those of you who don't know that. I got to meet all cultures. Because though it's a PWI, quote unquote, in the sciences, it's really a lot of Asians, Indians, right? Chinese, Koreans, people from different cultures. And get along with them too. It'll broaden your horizon. So I think those are the top things you should do. And you will be successful.
Thank you. Yeah, I love that you said that. I think it's important, like you said, of finding a support group, especially a peer support group. Mm-hmm. And I think I went to graduate school in Colorado. So it was like culture shock from Spelman and even Atlanta to Colorado.
Right.
Yes. But like you said, finding a peer support group, which I did, was really helpful and foundational. And I love that you said, try to, if it's a school next to HBC, because I think that would have made a difference. Like no Black people at all, well, like 2% at the time when I was there. But I think that would have made a difference because I could just go next door down the street.
Right. So those are some options. I mean, but you've proven yourself successful in spite of, and I think it's so, if you don't do that, you got to have a peer support group.
Right.
It's necessary.
Exactly. What emerging trends do you believe will shape the future of research on Black women in STEM?
I'm passionate about healthcare disparities amongst Black women. That's what I believe all of us, the NIH is putting a lot of dollars in making sure that you get information from all demographics. Artificial intelligence is coming, guys. And I don't necessarily believe artificial intelligence is going to remove all jobs, but people who know how to use AI and machine learning is going to take the job. So I really believe the trends are making sure, hopefully if we care enough, that these types of virtual realities, artificial intelligence technologies do not cause extreme bias to people of color. And the only way that we can help eliminate that is if we train our children to be developed in it so that we have a seat at the table to say this is a biased thing. And so I believe the trends are AI and machine learning, and using those tools to look at the massive amounts of data that is out there. We got to be a part of the story.
That was Dr. Maya Byfield, our first STEM story. To learn more about her work and phenomenal STEMist, check out this episode's podcast page on our website. We really appreciate you listening to this episode, and we want you to check out our future topics by going to our website, www.psychologyofblackwomanhood.com. Tell us what you think about what we're doing by leaving a comment on whatever platform you use to access this recording. And you can also keep up with our other related projects just by following us on Instagram or Facebook.